Hello, and welcome to Mindful Mondays with Melanie Morrison. I've been a bit MIA during this time because I just needed to step back and take some time for self care. So I'm really grateful for that time. And I'm also really grateful to be back. I think that this has been, a lot went on during the time that I took off. And definitely this has been a very turbulent time. The energy is quite intense and we have so much going on. So I'm really excited to bring in my friend Dulce to share with us a little bit about what's going on in the cosmos. So I know Dulce she was the first astrologer that I ever saw back in 2014. And wow, did that session with her just absolutely change and impact my life. I just think she's a wonderful person, and I'm excited to have her on to share her beautiful wisdom to help us get through this time with peace and ease and a feeling of groundedness as we kind of navigate everything that's going on. So I'm going to bring Dulce on, and she's going to give us a little bit of insight of what's going on up there in the cosmos and how it's affecting us right now. Hi, Dulce.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Melanie. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. I think that we all could really use a cosmic update right now. But I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself and share with people what you do and your business and your passion. And then we'll jump right into the discussion.
Okay. Well, I'm an astrologer. I've been one since I was 12 years old. Can't help it. For those of you who study astrology, you'll know that if you understand the symbols, that's it. You're kind of hooked. I think it's a past life thing, actually. I think I've studied astrology for centuries. I'm also a registered psychotherapist. I have my master's degree in transpersonal psychology, which is the marriage of spirituality and psychology. I have that from Naropa University. And I'm a radical living coach, which means I've studied with Colin Tipping. Radical forgiveness is my underlying premise. It's a philosophy that I live by, and which is based on the premise that nothing wrong ever really happened, which is like, what? But I'm a mystic Christian. I'm a great follower of Jesus. He's my brother. But I'm not involved in any religion. I am a Buddhist as well. I'm covering all my bases. No, I'm a long time meditator. This is actually my meditation space that I'm in right now. Meditation is just a way of creating space for yourself so that you can process and let's see, I'm well traveled. I grew up in Africa and during a civil war and had traveled with a backpack for many years. I'm kind of tough. I'm a tough old bird. And so that's it. I hope that helps, Melanie.
That does help. I love that you have that aspect of counseling. I feel like it really helps when you've encountered something that is kind of in your chart that you're struggling with, and then you can help us through that time. I think that that's what I found. One of the things that I found quite so helpful with your sessions.
Great.
So, we have a lot going on, and I think for us non-astrology, not that I don't watch and listen to the astrology, but really not being an astrologer, it's hard for us to understand what's going on exactly. Did you have any particular thoughts or insights that you could update us on, like really what's going on right now and how it's affecting all of us, really?
Well, we really are at a transition of an age. There's always something happening. But the Star of Bethlehem, the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, really ushered in what astrologers are calling the Great Mutation, which is where Jupiter and Saturn meet and trigger this 20-year cycle. But this 20-year cycle is embedded in a 200-year cycle, which is embedded in an 800-year cycle. And so this is a turning point from the energy of earth, where these two have been meeting, into the energy of air. So that's really the big thing that's happening, is this move into a different age, a zeitgeist shift, if you will. And so, we're really revisiting the age of Aquarius. And that's all about opinion and the mind and ideas and philosophies and technology and cyberspace and rebellion and protest. It's an air sign, which is of the intellect, and it's very fixed and stubborn. It's a kind of a prove it to me attitude. If you guys know any Aquarians, or you are any Aquarian, if you are an Aquarian, you're going to want someone to prove it to you. Prove that to me. Come on, don't just tell me, show me. So this is the energy that we're in, is a completely new age. And at the same time, while that's going on, the United States, of which I am a proud citizen, is going through its Pluto return. So if you remember from your history what happened when the founding fathers were trying to agree on their precepts, there was very little agreement. There was a lot of fighting going on. And in the chart of the United States, we have Pluto, which is this very powerful planet of shadow and, power and control. I'm gonna win, and I don't know, Melanie, if when you came to see me, I can't remember if you were going through a Pluto transit or not, but I see a lot of people who are going through Pluto transits, and they're really, someone in their life has kind of got power and control over them, and they're terrified. And so a Pluto transit has to do with facing fears and taking our own personal power back. And too often, particularly in personal relationships, if there's a Pluto struggle going on, it's because we've given our personal power up to somebody else. And now we want it back. No, I wanted to turn, I wanted to turn this way and you're turning that way. So I got to take my power back from you. And that's kind of what's happening in our country. And what's happening specifically in our country is we've got a Pluto-Mercury opposition, and Mercury is the mind, and it's ruled by Gemini. And we've got a lot of Gemini factors going on right now, which is, what is the truth? Is it fake news? Is it an alternative reality? Did this really happen? Who's stealing the children? Where are the pedophiles? These are all the sort of it's the notion of reality. And Gemini, at its very basics, the way it operates here on the earth plane is to really split us into left, right, Democrat, Republican, black, white. So with Gemini, we're always like, am I this or am I that? So that's where we want to be very, very careful over this next year, that we don't get pulled into this dualistic nonsense about he said this, or is this fake, and this is right and this is wrong. We want to be very, very, very careful of that. If we go there, then we're just manipulated puppets. So that's the power of this age that we're in.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with what's going on, and I think that's what a lot of us are trying to do, is we're just trying to make sense of all of this. I think another question, I don't know if you can answer it for me, but I think another question I think on everybody's mind is, are we ever going to get some relief from this? I mean, it feels like it's been one thing after another since 2020, and I think all of us are just ready for things to get better. So when you're looking at things, do you see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel somewhere down there soon?
Definitely. Our nation is just bringing up for healing. This is a radical living perspective, and I find it in the charts as well. I find it in the heavens with the movements of the planets. That there's so many things, so much trauma that this country was founded on. We have people coming here who were seeking religious persecution, seeking freedom from that. We have people who came here who needed a bit of land for themselves because they'd been living in feudal Europe, and they could never get past, the baron or the lord who owned the land that they themselves had been serfs on for generations. Then we have the, annihilation of the native peoples who lived here. We had the annihilation of wilderness. I mean, there were so many buffalo, people were shooting them from the train. The salmon was so thick, they looked like cobblestones. And I'm quoting now from literature of the time. And then we had people coming over here in cargo ships in the hold to be slaves. So we got a lot of pain. And we also have, and that's the birth pains of Pluto. So our country is going through the reenactment of all these birth pains. Who's in charge of the capital? Who's in charge of the country? So, it's the struggles come up because we really are trying to kind of integrate it and work with it. And so the more that we individually, and this is coming from Chiron and Aries. Chiron is the celestial body that's most associated with healing. And it's currently traveling through Aries. It takes 50 years to get to a sign. So it's very important because Chiron's going to be making aspects to the chart of the United States. And so Chiron and Aries is my healing, is the nation's healing. My own struggle with my own wounds. If I've got a wound, right, and I think I did something really bad, but I don't want to face it. Let's say I think I did something really awful, but I don't want to face it. But I'm going to blame you, Melanie. You did it. It's my wound and my shadow, but I don't want to deal with it. So it's there. So the only thing I can do really is project it out. Yeah. Because I'm unsophisticated, because I'm not in touch with my shadow. So that's what's happening for our country, is that when we're projecting out, when we're yelling and screaming, and when we're blaming, we're not healing. The Course in Miracles says the only true thoughts are thoughts of love. Right?
Yeah.
So, is there hope? Absolutely. The more you do your work, Melanie, the more I do mine, the more I recognize with people saying, I don't believe this and I do believe that, the more I can see that they're on the teeter-totter. But it's okay, because how else are we going to have a teeter-totter? Somebody has to be at this end and somebody has to be at that end. Am I going to hate them for being at this end or being at that end? No. So the hope for what we're working with comes from our own recognition of our own fears. And I think, and people have been very afraid. And no matter which side they're on, we're all sharing the same, Am I right? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I love the way you put it, because I think we all need a little new perspective. And that's really what you give to this conversation. When we can look at this time like a time of healing, our perspective completely changes. I know the minute you said that, I thought, yes, it is a time of healing. And so you can start to embrace it a little bit more, and you can kind of hold it with more love and more compassion. When you say that what we're going through are birthing pains, I get a glimmer of hope that through this, while it might hurt now, while it might feel intense now, we are going to be stepping into something with more peace and more joy and more overall hope to the whole situation. And then when you talk about it being, a teeter-totter, that it's so incredible how much that changes my perspective or my feeling around, the situation right now. And I think perspective is everything. It goes from feeling like we're at a tug of war or something that feels quite violent to something natural, almost like the pendulum swinging, that will eventually balance out. So yes, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's helpful and grounding for us all to get to have that extra perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, we do need to stand back. I really like your recapping of that because if we can stand back, then we can see, because you and I, we all know that when we feel love, it is one love. It's one love, and and the mind or the idea or the opinion is the place where the separation occurs. So separation occurs at the level of mind. And mind is programmed, indoctrinated, educated, and it really comes. Reason is very high. If you look at David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, which is the vibratory scale. So David Hawkins did a lot of work. He was a medical doctor. He did a lot of work with vibration, and the vibration, particularly of consciousness. So he would do kinesiology. So he'd push down, he had like envelopes with words in them. So one envelope was the word shame, and the person didn't know what the word was, and he'd push down shame. Oh, weak, weak, weak. And then then the person was holding the envelope with the word love inside, but he didn't know the word love was inside. And he pushed down, oh, strong, strong, strong. So if you look at David Hawkins, MD, he's written a lot of books. Power versus Force is the book I recommend. You will see that on the level of vibration, really, this is Aquarius. It's the vibration. Look at the symbol for Aquarius. Those are waves of vibes, man. Those are vibes, baby. Get your vibe on. That means vibrate, vibrate. Get your telomeres shining. Love, love, love. Pump love. It's because that vibration is but we're not angelic yet. Only angels can sort of illuminate to that high degree. But because as a mere human, we're still going to go, oh my God, I feel terrible. It happens to me. There are nights I could feel this stuff coming. I had sleepless nights that I could feel, because I get so plugged into the collective. Because as an astrologer, that's what happens, I could just feel it coming down the pike. And the only way I could just put my hand on my heart and say, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with this. Be with me. Let me take everything that I'm struggling with or everything that I'm feeling and just rebuild my auric field, rebuild the love in my heart. And basically through the practice of gratitude, I'm so grateful for my little wiener dog. I'm so grateful for the wonderful marriage I had with my husband. I'm so grateful for my friendships, I'm so grateful. And gratitude begins to clear the fear. Love begins to clear the fear. So anyway, I probably went way off topic. Forgive me.
No, I think that you were right on topic, because the next thing I was going to ask you is, how can we really navigate this time? And you just answered it right there.
Mm-hmm.
When we feel low, I mean, because people say, "Oh, high vibe," and we're always saying that, but sometimes it comes to the question of, I'm having a horrible day. I'm having a horrible week. It's been a horrible year. How can I get to the point where I'm hiring my vibration? I know certainly for me, it's meant self-care and self-love and healing and looking at how I'm taking care of myself and realizing, what I need to adjust and change so that I can feel better. Because everyone feels better when they exercise or when they get outside or when they just get a fresh new perspective, when they eat cleaner and drink their water, and everyone feels so much better. But when you're feeling low, even after all of those things, you might wonder, what's the next step? How can I get through this time? So I think that you answered it perfectly, without me even asking you the question. Did you have any like extra tips or that you would add for someone, especially like kind of throughout the year, like a good practice or a thought that they can remind themselves of during these times of birthing a new reality and healing the old?
Well, just like we'd say to an expectant mother, rest, rest,
Mhm.
rest, stop, stop, chill, rest. Put your feet up, nice cup of tea. Shh, shh. Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
I love that so much because we have so much guilt around resting, don't we? It's always go, 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 do, do, do. And so that beautiful reminder, and I've been hearing that a lot as well, is letting go of the guilt. That's the key. Letting go of the guilt that comes with allowing yourself to rest. For
Mhm.
sure. Well, I just want to pop in. We have people here listening to us. I wanted to show a comment here from Lee. Lee says, I think it's much more important to allow and accept every emotion rather than trying to achieve a high vibe if we're not actually in that state. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Emotion,
I'm suffering. I'm suffering. I'm suffering right now. Right on, Lee.
yeah.
There's no achievement. You can't achieve an emotion.
I like the idea of holding it and feeling it and giving it love rather than trying to always escape it. Because if we're escaping it, I feel like we hold it kind of as a cloud in our energy field. However, if we sit with it, and if it takes, a bit of time of not feeling well or just sitting at love or even some tears, you know, my daughter will come to me and say, Mom, I feel like crying. I don't want to cry. Well, cry, honey, cry, because you'll feel so much better. It's so cleansing. So I like that Lee mentioned that because we're definitely not talking about spiritual impasse here. We're talking about um, taking care of yourself, holding yourself with a space of healing and compassion so that we can vibe higher.
Well, we do have to get through the Pluto return for our country, which
Mm.
is, at least the next 18 months in front of us. So we're all going to be feeling upset, fear, anger. But if we linger in that feeling, um, we're just going to stay there, you know. So we kind of need to pass through it. The storm comes in and the storm goes out. So we don't want to hold too tight to anything, really, to the emotion, to the thought. We just want to observe that it's flowing through us.
I like that. Just observing it like a cloud passing by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Knowing,
we feel it. There's, if we're afraid or upset or there's something wrong, and we can feel it, we really, no matter how much we try, we really can't get rid of it. Because we're feeling it. But if we're with ourselves, that's why I really endorse breath work a lot. Just breathing, breathing, breathing. And there's some pretty cool NLP techniques, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a major premise of hypnotherapy. I'm also a hypnotherapist. And these NLP techniques really are related to the movement of the eyes. So if people are really experiencing great anxiety, what's really helpful is simply to look down and to the right and breathe deep belly breaths. Keep the head straight and look down and to the right. Breathe deep belly breaths. It really clears things. And EFT, I don't feel so good right now. I'm really worried about the country. I'm worried about, paying my rent. My grandma isn't doing great. Just the tapping alone, which is a way of telling the truth to yourself. Then there's no need to escape. We can be present with the truth. Therefore, that wound that we feel inside ourselves does not get projected onto somebody else. I'm taking care of my problem right here with me.
That makes a lot of sense. And I like what you said about the gratitude too, because we in this house we were having such a good day, kind of when everything hit and everything was chaotic. And our family, like in the house, it was like nothing out, all it was crazy in a whirlwind and a tornado outside of the house, but in this house, I could kind of just feel, I almost felt like could visualize like a little bubble around the house. The kids were getting along, my husband and I were getting along, we were playing games, and like there was just so much joy in this house. And I remember my husband said, "This is going to be a great year." And I said, "You know what? Yeah, like, just because it's chaotic out there doesn't mean it has to be chaotic in here." I think also kind of setting those boundaries and saying, I'm not going to focus on what's going on out there all the time. I'm going to allow myself to have joy and love and enjoyment within my home. I think so many times, I don't know, with empaths and even I myself, it's like if someone else is sad, I feel like I have to be sad too. Someone else is upset, I feel like I have to show, I have to kind of experience part of that.
Mhm.
Um, and that's great. That's a great tool in certain circumstances, but certainly not all of the time. At some point, we really just have to come to ourselves and be okay with having some peace and joy within our home and setting those boundaries around when we're going to focus on what's going on outside and then when we're going to just solely focus on what's going on inside of our home and our heart.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful because the inner is reflected in the outer. We all have so many individual conflicts that, and then we create so much on the collective level. And this year, the prevailing north node, the nodal axis, which is where the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun align. When they do align, we have an eclipse. So we have these eclipses in Gemini and Sagittarius this year. And that's on the level of that Gemini level, which is what is real and what is not real. What is the mental body? What are we creating with our minds? Are we in that? Are we creating a schism, or are we integrating? That's Gemini's challenge. The prevailing nodal axis is these points in space that have an 18-month. There are 18 months in their signs, so they'll be in Gemini and Sag for 18 months, and then it'll be 18 years before it comes back here. So that's what, no matter what each individual's chart is like, the prevailing nodal axis tells everybody, hey guys, this is what we're working on. This is the soul's path. And so we can all look at that together. And the invitation with Gemini in its high vibration is integration. It's not dichotomy. It's not schism. So that's what we really are all working with individually, is how can I integrate this? Something very difficult I found inside myself. There's a wound I found inside myself. I find matching wounds in the collective. Oh dear, this doesn't look good. How can I, just being present, breathing, gratitude, allowing those feelings to come up, being with them, getting help if need be, but recognizing this will pass. It always does. And if we get too attached, we forget it's a cosmic drama. It's just nothing but a big hoot. But unfortunately, some of us take it so seriously, we end up being hurt. Oh.
Yeah, and I think it does help to just be aware. I mean, for those people who are new to the words empath and just to be aware that they might be sensitive people. If you feel sensitive, you've always been a sensitive person, maybe been told that you're too sensitive, then you might also be somewhat affected by other people's feelings, if not a lot affected. And if you're affected by other people's feelings and you actually kind of feel the feelings when you're around them, it's not uncommon to feel what's happening in the masses. And so just having that knowledge can equip us all to take a moment and say, is this really me? do I, because sometimes I feel like it is, yeah, oh, it's me. I need to sit down and
Mm.
unpack this stuff and see what's going on and see what I can do to give it some attention and love. But there are other times, and I've experienced this even just with neighbors, I'll just ask the question, is this really me? And I just get the sense that it's not. And then sure enough, I'll find out that things around me were I was feeling maybe something that I wasn't even um, you know aware of, at the front of my mind, aware of. So I think just having that knowledge is quite helpful. So I'm wondering if I'd love to do just maybe two cards for everyone who popped on today,
Okay.
or for people that are popping on the replay, to just give a little bit of extra insight and love and guidance to how they're going to, for navigating this time. So I'll go ahead and kind of explain how that works, and then I'll bring you back on. Um,
I just want to make a point to what
yeah,
you were saying. I really appreciate it because you're quite right. That's a really important question to ask. Is this me?
yeah,
Or am I feeling something? Because we really are, like the great age of Aquarius that we're in with this conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and both of them moving into Aquarius. Saturn for the first time in 29, 30 years, Jupiter for the first time in 12 years. So this is a pretty big deal. Those of us who 58, 59 years old, 28, 29, 30 years old are going through our Saturn returns in Aquarius. Yeah, we really do feel one another and we love one another. And the only true thoughts are thoughts of love. The hate is just, this is these are the deep wounds that are coming up. But it's a really good thing that you mentioned that, Melanie. Is this really me, or am I feeling the fears of somebody else? What do I
right.
need to do to strengthen that? In the I Ching, I don't know if you work with the I Ching much, but it's become one of my favorite divination tools. It's very, very old Chinese system, and it has a very strong voice for the inner no. They're just like you were saying with your family and your home inside, and your husband with that very powerful statement. For me and my house, we're happy. So it's really about saying no to what? Nope, no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, and empowering ourselves to do so. I love that. Yeah, thank you for elaborating on that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll pull you off for a moment. You can grab your cards. I'll probably pull a card first, and then we'll end it on a card that you have to share. I'm really excited to see your cards because I know that you created them. So I'm going to pull you off, and then I'll just kind of explain to everyone how this works. Okay, so we're going to pull two cards. I would just suggest, if you're popping on anytime, just take a moment and feel into your heart, kind of ground yourself, take a couple breaths. And I would suggest that you feel into what card is really meant for you. What card is the card that you need to listen to? Why I like to do that is because it gives you an opportunity, if you're not used to using your intuition, is to practice it. And because the more we practice our intuition, the more we strengthen it. It's like a muscle. So feel free to write it if you want, one or two. And then as we draw the cards and we show you the cards, feel free to share with us like what really popped out to you, what really drew your attention, because that's going to give an added layer to the message that can really guide you through this time. So I'll go ahead and pull the first card from a deck. I really am drawn to this one today. So this is a deck by Belinda Grace, and it's You Are Clairvoyant oracle cards. So they're quite big. I like that. I like that about them. And there's not a lot of words. So it's nice because we can just sort of intuit what it is, the message that we need to hear today. So I'm just going to set the intention that for card number one, we are going to draw the card that's meant. Past lives. So interesting that came up. It feels so appropriate. I just feel like it goes a lot along with our discussion. Whatever it is that you may have going on, it might have to do with a past life. For those of you that maybe don't necessarily believe in a past life, you can embrace the thought that it might be just energy that um, you have felt maybe since you were born, or energy regarding an experience that you've had in the past. So I do believe in past lives. So for me, this message it says a lot. If you are new to kind of intuiting, go ahead and really look into the picture. Notice what catches your attention the most. It itself will have an additional message for you. And so that this card has come up, it's just letting you know that there might be some things that you may need to give a little bit of extra love. You may need to let go of, and not to necessarily overthink it, just to trust that you can heal your past lives and your past experiences. And that perhaps is part of the process that Dulce talked about, and what we're all going through right now is just healing from the past so that we can step into and rebirth a better future. So, yes, I love that one. It's beautiful. And Dulce, I would love any extra insight that you have in regards to that card.
You're right. That's awesome. It's, as my friend Lydia says, MTTFS, methinks this shit's for real,
Right? Yeah, I love it. So I'll let you go ahead and share the deck. What deck are you using?
These are soul collage cards. Some of you may know this work, created by a psychotherapist out of California. I forget her name now, but you basically make the cards yourself.
Oh,
And they're these big, enormous things. They're very difficult to shuffle. So I could have used another deck, but I'm just going to use one right now. All right. So this card speaks to me of the Nine of Cups. If you guys know Tarot, it's like the indulgence. There's this guy, he's got his New Orleans party beads on. Goodness knows what he's drinking. He's kind of a chunky fella, and he's chilling, he's laid back, and up above are two bears playing with one another. So this is a card that really invites, just lighten up. Lighten up. It's okay. That there's a play going on. So to my mind, let's see what I wrote on the back, because when you make these cards, I am the one who plays lightly with life, realizing the wisdom of relaxation. That goes back to the rest we were talking about, Melanie. The healing energy of prayer and play. The healing energy of play, and the true meaning of life, which to me is creativity. So, I love the guy's glasses. kind of foolish.
I love that message. And when I saw it automatically, I thought of two things. It just popped in my head. One was that mama bear feeling, and it reminded me of how anger, and I don't know that it's necessarily related to the Nine of Cups. It's just something that caught my attention and made me feel and think. But just it reminds me of how we talk about, sometimes when we talk about anger, it being a really bad thing. We label these feelings good or bad. And it kind of reminded me that sometimes anger, if used in the proper way, it's necessary. It reminds me of like a mama bear protecting her cubs, that that there are times that it's quite appropriate that we have that mama bear energy when we're dealing with things. Not always, but there are certain times. And then the other thing that immediately came to my mind was, of course, your advice in regards to rest and how the bear goes in and really takes that time to rest and retreat when necessary. And what a powerful animal the bear is. So, oftentimes when we think of resting, we start to label it lazy or weak, but when in fact, if we look at the bear, it's quite quite strong animal. So I really love that about the cards. Did you have any
Yeah.
extra thoughts or insight in regards to
Well,
that?
what you were saying about anger is very true. That scale of vibration, we were talking about how shame is so heavy and inert. If you can get to anger, then at least there's some energy, you know? So
Yeah,
look at that scale of consciousness. But if you can get to anger, then you're on your way up because then at least there's some movement. Um,
move us out of this.
huh?
Yeah, move us out of this.
Right. Willingness is a really lovely high vibration to be willing to lighten up, to be willing to, recognize the teeter-totter, to
Yeah,
be willing to allow the other person to have their views, be willing to be tolerant, even at the same time that it may be evoking feelings in us. And I'm talking about this because this is what our country is going through. I'm not making a big brouhaha and discussing this because, oh, what happened at the Capitol. Not That's part of it, but that's just symptomatic of this longer overall struggle that the United States is in. And particularly this month, Inauguration Day, starting on the 17th of January and moving up through the 18, 19, 20, 21, we're going to have Mars, Uranus conjunction. And on the Inauguration Day, the moon will be there. Mars and Uranus are complete hotheads together. The storming of the Capitol was when Mars entered Taurus for the first time in 2 years. Mars is the energy of, aggression and the warrior and, the wild kind of uncontrollable urge to sort of do something. And it had just entered Taurus and formed a square 90-degree angle with Jupiter and Saturn. So there was big stuff. So we have more of that coming up for this month. But if we recognize that this sort of pushing and this energy is kind of like getting that baby out, you had your baby, you know what it's like. You've got to push that baby out. And you can't do it if lollygagging, drinking, your margarita. Oh, my baby's going to come on. You got to be present for it. So this is ushering big change in, and hopefully it's for our integration. Hopefully it's for peace and the owning of our shadow. And I think these here United States are going to be a very, very exciting place to live over the next couple of years. I just hope we can have love and respect for one another, remembering that true thoughts are thoughts of love. And everything else is just things that we're either making up or we're misunderstanding in our limited consciousness. And that's okay. Forgive them. They know not what they do,
right.
We just don't know. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing.
I think that that's definitely a good perspective considering what we have still to go through. So I guess one last question for you before we go is you mentioned kind of that short period that we're coming up on. Um, and that might be kind of the last thing that people want to hear. Like they want to know it's kind of over already. So for those people kind of thinking about, oh, wow, so there's more of this going on and feeling like, oh, well, maybe I should just step back and kind of step away from maybe social media or kind of go into my cave so that I don't experience it, or just maybe not knowing how to move forward. What would be the kind of tools or advice you'd give to someone considering those times or during those types of times? So many times we hear about, oh, things are going to be turbulent. And personally, and I've heard kind of in the cosmic vibes community that it's just kind of like, well, how do we respond knowing that those times are coming?
Radical self-responsibility. I'm responsible for me. You're responsible for you. And how do you, and being in alignment, well, what does that mean? Well, what are your values? You know, my values are cheerfulness, peace, faith, intimacy, generosity, creativity. Let's say I have a decision in front of me. Will it bring me these values that I value? Will it bring me peace? Will it make me cheerful? You know, is that choice I'm making in alignment with my values? So I think the very most basic exercise is to discover one's values. What's important to you? What do you really value? And then any choices you make, does it fit? Does it fit? So, and you know, I think it's okay to get off social media and take care of yourself. I really do. In fact, I'm going to do that. In fact, this will be my last broadcast for a while. I'm going to go undercover. I'm going to be an undercover operant. Put my mask on. No one will know it's me. Because Mercury is turning retrograde at the end of this month, and I'm a Mercury being, I'm a triple Gemini with Pisces rising, which is a recipe for and Mercury is going retrograde. So I'm going to take the Mercury retrograde period to go in and reflect. Of course, I don't know how long it'll last, but I think it's perfectly okay to do that for that radical responsibility. Gratitude, breath, rest, socialization with friends, as much as that can be done. You know, some people are gathering, some people are not. There's still always, you know, connection on cyberspace or the phone, long phone chats. Read something really good. You know, study something beautiful. This is an old classic I just keep going back to. So I really, you know, read stuff that feed your brain, feed your brain. Give it something to do. Give it something healthy.
Yes, definitely. I love that radical responsibility. I'd add radical self-love and all of those things. Thank you so much for coming on today. I think those are great tips. I wanted to make sure that if there's anyone here that they just felt they really needed to reach you, that they could. Perhaps you could leave your link below at the end of our discussion, or if you want to share here and now how that someone can reach you if they really needed to schedule something with you.
That's great. Yes, I have a very active website, dulcebellbulley.com, astrologybydulce.com. I write, God willing, you know, I may not always write it, but right now, my gift to the community is to write a day-by-day blog with my 2 cents worth of what's going on. So that's available on my website.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming today. And thank you, everybody who popped on. Mark Hubby says, love and light, says hello. And then Lee Michael had a lot more to say about being an empath. And I think that was very insightful, just about being able to step away, not necessarily sit in darkness with everyone else. So,
hey, Lee, I'm totally with Lee. Really. Lee, I think that's really wise. You know, is that if I'm choosing to sit in the dark with everyone else, I'm not truly helping anyone, including myself. I can offer support and have compassion, of course. But if I'm taking on other people's sadness and challenges, then there's just more of us who are feeling that. Amen, brother. You know, but hey, if you need to shut the door and go into, you know, look, the bears hibernate. You know, you find your own seasons of rest and renewal. You have your own season of rest and renewal. But while you're hiding in your cave, nourish yourself. Nourish. Just feed yourself up. Dance. Put on some great music. Shake your groove thing. Hug your wiener dog. You know?
well, again, thank you so much. I love your energy and all of your insight. So thanks again for everyone that popped on today. So lovely to connect with you, Lee, and anyone that's catching the replay. I just want to say we'll be on. I have another guest on Wise Wednesdays at 1:00. So I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, big love and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Melanie. Appreciate it.
Thank you.